Do y'all remember that clip from I want to say maybe like a few years ago, to be honest, wherein Craig Button was on the Overdrive show on TSN talking about Auston Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this was a really prominent clip that sort of went around because a lot of people were saying, wait a minute, this is kind of funny, because in this clip that was so prominently shared on social media, you had the conversation about Matthews steering itself in the direction directed by Craig Button. The quote is here in the video: "I think the talk about Auston Matthews being one of the best players in the league needs to stop. He's not as good as Draisaitl. He's not even close to Draisaitl right now." And the funny part is, this clip was literally from, I want to say like a year or 2 years ago. And so you could imagine that back in this time frame, there was certainly a lot of debate amongst Oilers and Leafs fans saying, wait a minute, Craig, what are you talking about? Draisaitl? Leon Draisaitl is better than Auston Matthews? Come on, man. Because around this time frame, Matthews was in the process of getting his 60-goal season, and he was the Rocket Richard winner, and everybody kind of saw Matthews as the king of the next generation's worth of goal scorers in the National Hockey League. And he was good. I mean, last season, 106 points, 73 games played. Sure, this year he kind of dropped off. He scored 20 fewer goals this season compared to last season, and only 85 points compared to the 106. But with the conversations going about with the two teams at hand here, the Oilers and the Leafs, I feel like now is as appropriate of a time as any to re-explore that idea and ask whether or not Auston Matthews really is that much better than Leon Draisaitl. Craig Button, back in the day, said no, but a lot of people clowned on him for this. Wait a minute, Matthews is the top goal scorer. Draisaitl is carried by McDavid. You had all the Leafs fans going out there and saying that this was a ridiculous take, especially since it was set on Overdrive, which is primarily listened to and consumed by people in the Toronto, Ontario area. And so I remember very specifically how much this clip was clowned upon back when it was made. But now, if you go over to the second round series for each of these teams, the Oilers and the Golden Knights, Auston Matthews, in 3 games played that in which they've all lost against the Florida Panthers, he has 0 goals and 2 assists for 2 total points. Meanwhile, if you go over to Leon Draisaitl, he was held pointless in the last game 3 against Vegas because they only scored 1 goal, but in the other 2 games, games 1 and 2, Draisaitl has 6 goals, and I mean, look, we've been making videos about the Oilers. Oh, we talked about Evan Bouchard the other day. He's been doing his thing. But long story short, Leon Draisaitl is on pace to doing something absolutely incredible if the Oilers can find a way to get past the Vegas Golden Knights in round 2. Should they get themselves, let's just say, 6 games against Vegas, and then maybe another 6 games in the Western Conference Finals. Let's just say that hypothetically. Leon Draisaitl is on pace to absolutely shattering the goal record for a single playoff run. In, 9 games already, he's got 13 goals and 4 assists, so he's got more goals than Auston Matthews has points straight up. He's got 11 points in 9 games, Auston Matthews does. Most of them came against Tampa Bay. And, I mean, against Florida, the entire Leafs core 4, we had already talked about this, but all of them have stopped scoring points. Tavares, Marner, Nylander, Matthews, they're not getting it done. The guys that are getting it done in the score sheet for Toronto, Eric Gustafsson, David Kampf, Sam Lafferty, not the guys that you want to be leading your team against a formidable second-round Florida Panthers opponent that in which your fans were cheering they wanted you to get. Like, we have Game 4 later today between these two teams. Actually, we have 2 Game 4s later today. Edmonton-Vegas Game 4 today, and then we have, of course, Toronto-Florida Game 4 today. The Maple Leafs could get eliminated straight up. And this could be, depending on what happens in these 2 games, the ultimate nail in the coffin for the entire Matthews versus Draisaitl debate, because even just looking at the isolated point production from seasons upon seasons alone, Leon Draisaitl this year had 128 points, 52 goals, 76 assists in 80 games played. Last season, 110 points. Leon Draisaitl has had so many freaking points the past few years, and an Art Ross to his name when Connor McDavid was out. that even just the notion that Auston Matthews was in the same breath as Draisaitl was only really carried by Matthews' momentum from last year. And realistically speaking, when you acknowledge where these two players are at point production-wise in both the playoffs and the regular season now, it becomes no debate when you think about it. Who would you rather have on your team, Matthews or Draisaitl? Like, I get you could say that Matthews' goal scoring is going to take an increase next year, but you can't guarantee that. The guy went from 60 goals to 40 goals, and sure, he might get 60 again next year, but you know who else might get 60 goals if he actually stays healthy? Leon Draisaitl. I mean, 13 goals in 9 playoff games already. This guy had bested out the top playoff goal scorer last year in only a series and a half's worth of games. Like, he's already pretty much given himself a top spot for the Conn Smythe, and it's only round 2. If the Oilers win the Cup, that in which I actually do have them winning in my bracket, and Leon Draisaitl finishes off the run with 20 games played and a goal production pace that matches that, he'll be on pace for, 25, 26 goals? Like, Leon is just incredible, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows McDavid is good, everybody knows that Leon is good, but I think that the way Leon Draisaitl has come alive in this postseason run has put to bed all the conversations about him being behind Auston Matthews in terms of NHL talent and prosperity, especially when you consider what's been going on in Toronto in that second round with these core 4 guys just disappearing. You know who doesn't disappear when the team ends up playing bad? Leon Draisaitl. Sure, he had 0 points in the last game against the Vegas Golden Knights, but throughout all the playoff runs, throughout all the series, Draisaitl is still producing points. Last year, he had 2 points a game, 16 games played, and 32 goals. Sure, you could say the Oilers rely so much on Draisaitl and McDavid. It's one of the only reasons they're even in the postseason. But hey, that means they show up. That means they're consistent enough to the point that they can be relied upon that much, because they're so consistent at producing and getting things done. And unfortunately, you can't say the same thing about Auston Matthews from this season. You can't say the same thing about the core 4, which includes Matthews, this playoff series against Florida. And at the end of the day, it kind of paints its own picture, right? It sucks, but I really do feel like with the way this postseason has gone, you're really spelling out the conclusions right there, front and center, between both teams and both fan bases. Leafs fans are disappointed with Matthews, Oilers fans are on the moon, talking about Leon Draisaitl. And just that dichotomy there indicates to me where everything is at when it comes to the talent level and what these two players bring to the table as to what defines them as good players in the first place. Right now, 2023, May 10th, I'm building a team with Draisaitl instead of Matthews. And if you're talking about trying to win a Stanley Cup, then hey, Draisaitl is your guy. You rely on him more so. You can confidently expect him to continuously do what it is that he's supposed to be able to do. And unfortunately, with Matthews and the rest of the Maple Leafs core 4, you can't say the same thing. Now, I think, and I'll say this right here, if this video goes out there on the morning of May 10th, and by the end of the day on May 10th, Toronto goes out there and stomps the Panthers. Let's say Matthews gets a hat trick and an extra assist on top of that. The Maple Leafs win 7-1 against Florida in Game 4. They give a big, bad spanking to the Panthers, and they bring themselves within 3? Then okay, great. Awesome to see. If Leon Draisaitl craps the bed tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights, then okay, we'll see. But at this point in time, Draisaitl is really ahead of Matthews in that race. And so, I want you to tell me in the comment section below, what are your opinions about this idea? Do you think it's worth bringing up? Do you think it's worth talking about? Do you think I'm right? Do you disagree? Why or why not? Let me know in the comment section below. It shall be your floor. All your opinions about Matthews and Draisaitl. We've got 2 games coming on later today, so we will get ourselves a little bit more of an update as to these 2 players and their postseason runs after tonight's action. But I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.